Here, I've got a couple of pieces of technology we're still trying to figure out here. Okay, well, that actually might work. Okay. That says live. Does this say live? That says live.
It says live on my end on the screen.
Look at that. What are the odds of that actually working? Okay. Now let's see if it's live over here. That's the test. Oh, it is. Look at that.
Nice.
Okay, so I think I probably need to do this. Okay, welcome everybody. Toby Milroy here again, Vice President for AMS, and we're going to get kicked off here in about 1 minute, so stand by for me. There's still a few pieces of lingering technology I'm working on. I've got to get the teleconference portion recording. Record, file name. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks again for your patience with us while we get all the technological bits and bytes working over here. Toby Milroy here again, Vice President for AMS, and welcome to our AMS and our Atlas members webinar. Every month we spend some time getting together and talking about what's working in the marketplace, what isn't working. We're sharing sort of the breakthroughs that we're having and the challenges that we're having, so we can all kind of learn and grow together. One of the big challenges we have in our industry is, lots of us in our martial arts schools, we're sort of walled off all by ourselves over there, and it's very useful to have that group that you can collaborate with. So thanks for taking time out of your day to invest in this most critical part of developing your business. As Steve Covey would say, sharpening the saw is one of the most important pieces of this thing, and if you don't block time out of your schedule to do that, it won't get done. So thank you for joining me there. Joining us today, well, a couple of quick housekeeping items before we get to our guest today. We're on 4 different platforms right now. So let me walk through quickly how you can interact with us if you so choose. Number one is if you're on the teleconference portion of our time today, you can hit *6 on your phone and you'll be unmuted. I start the call with everybody muted so that if we have dogs barking in the background, it doesn't get distracting. So you're welcome to do that. Mostly folks will interact on the blog though. If you're watching on ourams.com/webinar, there's a little chat area right below the video. If you're watching on our members hangout page, there's a little chat area right below the video. And obviously if you're on Facebook Live, you can probably figure that part out, right? There's a little box at the bottom. So feel free to interact any way you choose and see fit. So let's see if that actually might be working okay. So for our guest today, one of my favorite human beings in the martial arts industry, Master Chip Townsend. Chip is, I think probably first and foremost a husband and a father of 3. 14-time ISK world breaking champion, 6th-degree black belt, and oh, by the way, runs a nice successful little chain of schools in Texas and in Oklahoma. So don't forget, right? Actually, knows how to run businesses. Also the author of Breakthrough Leadership, the Team Chip Method, and founder of the program Break Like a Champ, a community of school operators working together to integrate and maximize their programs by implementing breaking techniques, safe breaking techniques, and safe and effective breaking curriculum in their school in what I've seen to be one of the most effective ways that stimulates retention, not stimulates attrition, right? So we'll get there. So Chip, thank you so much for taking the time today to join us. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. I'm pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I think we have a lot of stuff on our agenda today, and usually I like to try to keep us to an hour so that our folks who are working the after school programs on the East Coast and things like that have the ability to get back into their schools. But I think let's start with something I think that's pretty important that I know we're on the same page with, but I think it's important for our listeners to be on board with as well. I think culture is super important, right? So today we're going to talk a little bit about what's working in marketing for you in your schools. We're going to talk a little bit about what's helping you develop multiple locations and things like that. But I think belief systems are always first, right? And I think what you believe is going to determine your outcome more than pretty much anything else. We talked a little earlier about some of the negativity in our industry and some of the politics that we have to deal with. And I'm really concerned about a lot of that right now. There seems to be a general tone of some folks in our industry that I think is inappropriate. And I know the culture that you've created in your schools and what you've, I think been a beacon of in our industry is just this indomitable sense of positivity that it doesn't really matter what is negative. Right. We have to focus on the positive. So how might you expand on that, and how have you sort of built that into building your schools?
Well, culture is everything, and I think maybe sort of unique and sort of not. Whenever I was a young guy, got the opportunity to take over our school, the school I grew up in as a teenager, from 13 years old to 20. I had just turned 23 when we actually bought the school, and we had like 50 students in a little rented building with a lot of worn out equipment. And so because of that, and pre-web, pre-connections, social media, all those things, we were kind of isolated. And I had this weird mindset of, I'm just going to focus on our students, our business, and just run and make it work. I never even thought, you said something earlier that was really powerful. We get what we believe in and think about. I never even began to think that it would fail. I just didn't have that thought in my mind. I was a hungry young guy, pretty freshly married, and we were my wife was we agreed one would go to school and one would work, and I had this opportunity come up, and we actually took our life savings and bought this good faith, goodwill, if you will, of a handful of students and a rented property, and again, like I said, just kind of some old worn out equipment. And it was a school I grew up in. And so in the process of doing that, I sat down at my desk and I began to read and study anything and everything I could to better myself, and to try to figure out how to get people on my mat so that I could pay my bills. To be blatantly honest with you. And the passion was being a martial arts instructor and having that platform of martial arts, because I so much, and I think probably everybody on this webinar and live, we so believe in what we do. There's nobody we can't touch, from health to fitness to, stress relief and all these areas of life. And if we truly believe in that, and make that our passion, I think it's not easy. It's always hard work to survive, but it makes it easier to survive. So here's the order of priorities. And I'm going to quote some people in our industry. I picked this one up from Kyoshi Dave Kovar, but it's an order of priorities that I really love. I am first and foremost a martial artist. I am second a teacher, and I'm third a business person. And that doesn't mean that I don't take business serious. It's that I think that for us to impact other people, we have to lead by example. And in our industry, I think it's important that if we're going to stand in front of a group of people, we need to stand there, not with authority as an authoritarian figure, but the authority of, look, this guy trains too. He practices alongside us. He's a person just like us. And I think that's what gains trust. It gains respect. And so we're martial artists first. Then we get on the mat and we do the very best we can to physically show, to audibly, teach, and to visually demonstrate things that inspire people to new levels. And then thirdly, we go in the office in the evening, or if you've grown enough to have a staff, which we're blessed enough to have that now, you go in there and you check things off and make sure that the things are getting paid. And so that's kind of our culture. And on culture, not to talk too much, but super important to us that our school is super family. I mean, it is family focused, family friendly. I had a funny story one time. I had a guy come in. I was young and probably kind of cocky and arrogant as a young black belt running my school, but he comes in with a naked woman tattooed down his arm, and he was like somebody's uncle. And I just, without even hesitating, walked up and said, "Man, I'm so glad you're here and I appreciate you, but the next time you come, cover that up, because this is not something I want these kids to see." And sadly, I feel bad. I never saw the guy again, but he respected it. And he said, "Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that." And, I just think it's important that we not only talk about being family focused and family oriented, but we live it, we example it in every way possible. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would probably echo and amplify the whole order of priorities thing. One of the, a phrase I think that stuck with me for a very long time when I was operating other businesses is, the best way to kill a bad movie is with good marketing.
Right.
The best way to kill a bad restaurant is with good marketing. Right. The best way to kill any bad business is put a bunch of people into it. Right. Because now they all go tell their friends how much it sucks and nobody goes back. Right.
Right.
And I think the same is true with a martial arts school. I mean, if a good marketer on the floor doesn't stimulate the confidence and the behavior that you want to stimulate, from the students. So I totally agree with your order of priorities, and I would maybe even amplify it. I mean, if you don't have the teaching bit down, if you don't have the best interest of your student always in mind, then man, you start amping up your business systems or amping up your marketing systems, or, integrating high level social media marketing, or, even mass media, man, you're just going to kill yourself fast, So I think you're totally right. Let's kind of drill into the culture a bit here for just a second, because I know that, obviously culture, when you're talking about the student base, is very important. The congruence of that. You said your family all the way. And I mean, I've seen this, I don't know how many times. I mean, I've worked with somewhere around 4,000 school operators at some level of distance in some cases, where I have a really nice traditional martial arts school going on and a family program. And now the next bright, shiny object moves through the industry. And I think, well, you know what? I need to do, I need another extra $2,000 or $4,000 a month. So I'm going to go ahead and implement like an MMA program in the back room or something like that, or a kickboxing program. Well, that might not match up to the culture that you're trying to accomplish, right? I mean, I did a one-day on-site consult with a school over here, actually in Orlando. And they had a great little family program going on, and then decided to put a cage in the back of the room. Right. Now, I've got nothing against MMA. I love it. I studied Brazilian Jiu. I love it, right? But I physically saw upscale moms of 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds walking their kids in, kind of like shielding their eyes from seeing the guys with no shirt on punching each other in the face really hard. Right. It just seems incongruent to me, right? So how do you, in your schools, sort of translate that to your instructors and then down to the students? What are some of the processes that you put in place, or your belief systems that stimulate that?
I'm going to have to say, like you, I absolutely love MMA. I follow, the big fights and a lot of the athletes that are MMA fighters. But we don't particularly have what we call an MMA program in any of our schools. We teach traditional programs, and we're very clear about that up front. We teach a traditional Taekwondo program. We teach traditional martial arts, period, across the spectrum in our schools. So everyone wears a uniform or appropriate attire. We're very upfront about that. We don't allow inappropriate language in the school. I tell my students, and I reiterate to the families all the time, in belt ceremonies and testings and whenever I have those captured audiences, hey guys, we are very much family focused and family, we want to be the kind of like a third place that's safe for your kids to go. If you have something to say that's inappropriate for my 5-year-old, although I don't currently have a 5-year-old anymore, but my 5-year-old that I have to explain to them, you just don't say it, and keep that to yourself. And so I work with my instructors all the time on, guys, your litmus test for how you treat a student in class. Yes, we're very firm with structure and discipline in classes, and discipline doesn't mean punitive, but just means structure. And, I tell my instructors, I say, look, even if you don't have children, if there's a time where you're feeling like you need to squeeze a kid or even an adult a little bit, but primarily a kid in class about something that this is the 4th time you've had to tell them to keep their hands to themselves, and you feel like you need to squeeze them some, just go into your mind and think to yourself, if that was my child, would I be okay with what I'm about to do? And check that off first. And so we really grind on that. I was just sitting here as you were talking and pulled up some amazing statistics on, right now I'm pretty driven by this, the fatherlessness of our society. And it's amazing. It just one, for instance, 44 fatherless families are 44% more likely to raise children in poverty. I mean, there's just lists and lists. 71% of kids in fatherless homes are more likely to be adolescent substance abusers. 71% when they don't have a dad. And I think it goes both ways. They need moms and dads, but our society right now needs fathers and we need dads. And so we try really hard in our culture to propagate appropriateness. It's absolutely okay to have conversations, candid conversations with your children, but make them age appropriate and make it something that benefits that child and gives them a good guide for their future, if that makes sense. So we bang that all the time.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect. It's a crisis, right?
It is.
And it's regardless of sort of what side of the political fence you fall on, I think we should all be able to agree that, we, all of us, the people who are in the martial arts business, the people who are in, especially in the family business, just because of the nature of our student, we're preparing people for life,
Yes.
And I think, you know, an aside, perhaps a tangent, but congruent with what we're talking about. I'm glad you said what you said, specifically you, because I don't think there's anybody in our industry. And I think this is a critical piece that I'd like you to speak to. This is a critical piece of our culture that we have to get better at in our industry. People like to make excuses, and all human beings, right? And in our industry, our excuse is, well, they can get away with that because they don't really teach very good quality, right? They can make more money because they just give away belts. They can worry about teaching, you know, they say they teach character just so that they can charge higher tuition, this kind of stuff, right? And I think you specifically, and I hope in my schools too, but I think you specifically, you train an awful lot of world championship, right? You train an awful lot of people who compete at a very high level in a broad spectrum of different styles and disciplines and things like that. And I think what we have to get, where we have to get as an industry, is those two things are intricately connected, not disconnected. Does that make sense? I mean, how does that strike you? And in your schools, what are you focused on to make sure that that's the reality?
So Team CHIP is actually an acronym. I'm going to kind of not veer, but just talk real quick through this acronym. T stands for teachable. E stands for excellence. And let me back up. Teachable means you leave your ego at the door. And every leadership team meeting, just about every instructor meeting, leadership team meeting, we flash through that acronym. We're teachable. We're willing to learn from our students as well as teach our students, and we leave our ego at the door in doing so. We strive for excellence in everything we do. We'll hold ourselves highly accountable before we hold our people accountable, so they can trust and believe in us. We're motivated. The M is motivated, man. I know my motive today. When I walk on the mat, is to teach the best class ever, no, bar none. I'm always courteous. I'm always honest. I'm an inspiration, and I never give up at those things. So that acronym is really powerful, and we grind on that. Those, I call them timeless truths. Just being a teachable, ego-free person is a timeless truth. If you're that person, no matter where you go, no matter your age, your race, your religion, your background, even probably, you know, the culture you come from, people will like you because you're friendly. You're willing to receive. You're not just coming in telling people what to do and how to do it all the time. Is it easy? Heck no, it's not. I mean, we all mess up and come in with a little bit of authoritarianism at times and go, all right, dang it, do it like this, but it's not always the best approach. So I really work with our team on sticking to that acronym, you know, as well as our traditional tenets of, you know, courtesy and integrity and perseverance and self-control and so on, to help build a culture that is, again, family friendly for everybody. I don't want anyone to feel left out.
Yeah, brilliant. I think the idea that one must let me re-drill into this a little bit at a slightly different angle. I think the idea in our industry that in order to have a successful business, that must mean that you've somehow diminished your quality standards. I think there are some, don't get me wrong, right? There are some folks in our industry, there might even be some organizations in our industry who really are not focused on high quality student development, but rather profit. Right. My contention is that the two are intricately connected. Absolutely. And my experience has been the folks I've worked with, you know, similar to you, who have higher and higher quality standards can then justify, in fact, higher and higher tuition, be more and more profitable. Absolutely. Because when that next new student comes in the door, when the next new family comes in the door, and you're sitting down at the enrollment conference and you're saying, well, Mrs. Jones, enroll in this program and your child will look like that one day. Well, if they don't like that, right, then why do they want to enroll, right? So, right. So how would you, if you were advising a school, if you were talking to an audience about how to maintain high quality standards, how to keep everybody on your team focused on that, what are some of the things that you implement that contribute to the type of success that you've had with high quality students? Okay.
First, I'm going to go back to that order priority: martial artist first, teacher second, business third. The next thing I'm going to say is I like to kind of think in terms of checks and balances. So as our students progress through our martial arts school, as they go through, we run 12-week cycles. And so during that 12-week cycle, they're learning, you know, their form, their one-step sparring, their self-defense, kickboxing combinations, you know, then their traditional movements up and down the floor. So they're learning a good, diverse set of material. During that, and most people are already doing this, your students are earning stripes between testings, and those stripes are kind of those checkpoints. And then what we have to do is be very clear with our instructors and our leadership teams. A person does not earn a stripe unless they have really truly put in the work. One of the things we emphasize heavily, and I tell people all the time, if you take anything from Teamship or from us as a group, learn how to outwork everybody in the room. You know, I love that Will Smith quote where he says, you know what, you may be better than me, but if we get on a treadmill side by side, you're going to have to die to beat me. And that's the mindset I try to drill into our leadership team and instructors. And what I mean by that is you know, many times in our society and our culture, I personally think that what's missing is parents are not having, or even leaders in business they're not setting expectations. They're just kind of going, here's what I need you to do, go get it done. And there is no expectation. I think we should set. I think kids want, need, and desire expectations. They desire high expectations. Do they always enjoy the work process getting there? Not always, although we try to make it fun so we don't lose them. Because sometimes if we make them work too hard, I think it can be easy for them to walk out the door. Well, man, that was way too tough for me. It's never too tough. So we have to strike a balance between those high expectations, making classes enjoyable, making their time on the mat enjoyable so that they remember, hey, I want to come back and do that again, or they have that desire. So with that said, in our instructor and leadership team meetings, and really more with our instructors, because our leadership team is not allowed to stripe students, but our instructors are, we really work with them on, hey, if they don't have it solid and they're not getting red and sweating, making that happen, maybe they're not quite ready for that stripe yet. And if you go read books like Mindset by Carol Dweck or Grit by Amy Duckworth, those books are talking about the way we should be kudoing our children is not, hey kid, you're so good at this. It's, hey kid, you did awesome because you work hard. Hey kid, you made a good grade, not because you're super smart, but because you worked hard in the process of making that happen. And what they learn whenever we edify their work ethic is they learn how not to run when something is hard. In other words, you know, if we constantly tell a kid, hey, you're just naturally good, you're naturally good, the first time they meet a kid that gives them a whooping on the mat, all of a sudden they want to run. But if they've always been told you're good at this because of the work ethic you put in and how hard you train, then if they come across something that's tough, they go, okay, I'll just work a little harder. So we're creating a mindset of hard work. And that's, I personally think that's something our society needs tremendously. You know, instead of looking at something and going, man, that's too tough or not for me. Hey, if that guy can do it, so can I. My parents gave me some amazing advice as a kid. I'm one of these weird guys that, it's funny, I'm sitting here looking at an autographed Randy Couture picture I got the other day when I had a chance to hang out with him. And but I'm not a starstruck guy. So what that means is my mom and dad told me when I was a kid, they said, I don't care how much money somebody has. I don't care how many letters they have behind their name. I don't care what they have. Every morning when they get up, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. And what that taught me as a kid is I can accomplish anything those guys can accomplish if I'm willing to put in the work. And so I think it's important that, you know, back to the question, you know, whenever people come in, I much prefer a student to want to sign up because they see quality on the mat and they're excited about, wow, did you see what those kids can do up on the front line? And they go up front and they go, little Johnny wants to be just like Bobby he saw out there on the mat. That's a much better tool for signing someone up than just great marketing. Marketing's not going to get it done, which you've already addressed. But
yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, there's like 4 things I want to make sure we re-highlight in what you said. By the way, anybody who hasn't seen the Amy Duckworth TED Talk, she does she wrote a book, Grit, and well, what's your analysis? What would you say about the book in maybe 9 seconds?
You know, I'll be honest with you. The first half of the book, I was kind of having trouble getting into it. I really was. I was like, the second half of the book, I couldn't put it down. I was like, holy smokes, this is exactly what I needed to hear right now. So, you know, it's, again, I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but it's just really powerful how she presents so much, you know, statistical information and all the studies she's done on high achievers are not naturally talented. High achievers are not necessarily, they might be, but they're not necessarily the highest grades in school. They're not high achievers are the people that have what she calls grit. And grit is the willingness to set that a goal high and stick to it and fight for it, work for it, do whatever it takes to get there. And I think that, again, if we're constantly telling our kids, and it's been a big shift for us over the last, 3, 4, 5 years, I've really worked with our staff on, hey guys, whenever you high five little Johnny, and we follow that rule of 3, we make eye contact, we say their name, and we give them some appropriate physical contact like a high five. We don't just say, hey man, you're really good. We're specific. We say, man, you threw that side kick so awesome because you're always working hard on your side kicks. And just kind of walk away and leave it at that. And we're planting the seed in their mind of hard work makes awesomeness.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, the Duckworth thing, she did a TED Talk, and I think it should be mandatory for every parent who gets into your school or every prospect who's in your funnel. In fact, the TED Talk license doesn't allow you to use it for commercial purposes on your own site, but you can certainly link over to TED. And I would put it in everybody's email sequence. This is a tool that you should be texting and emailing all of your prospects and certainly your students, but it's about, as you described, it's the best documented study I've seen so far on the pattern of success for children. Yes. And specifically, she focused a certain subset of her data gathering on inner city schools, right?
Right.
On elementary school kids who statistically don't have much of a chance, right?
Right.
And what she found is exactly what you're describing. It's about grit. It's the kids that are grittiest, right? The ones who just, when they find the challenge, they figure out how to overcome it rather than shrink from it. And it's fantastic work. So everybody look that up. Amy Duckworth, her TED Talk over on TED. It's fantastic. It's mandatory for everybody. The other thing I think that you said that's pretty critical, I think, is inspect what you expect to get respect, right?
Right.
Just handing down the order from on high and thinking that it's going to be done without re-inspecting it only empowers people to disappoint you, right? Absolutely. And it's not because they want to disappoint you. It's not because they're deliberately trying to do something, that's not right. It's just that you show them what your priorities are based on what you choose to focus on and measure, right? Mm-hmm. And Peter Drucker, always used to say, what gets measured gets done, right? And if you don't have a metric for it, if you don't have a system for measuring that performance, then it's too difficult for normal human beings to follow those directions. So in your example, the rule of 3, right? If every instructor, when they walk out on the floor, knows that every student has to be touched in all 3 ways, then now they have something concrete that they can dig their teeth into. They have something they can be good at mastering. This is exactly the same as the belt system in our martial arts schools, right? We teach them the pattern of success. We show them what the short-term goal is. We show them how to take daily action on that goal. But then as soon as they become instructors, we forget that.
Right. Sometimes we do. So the way, one of the things I want to kind of jump in here and address is, so our instructor requirements are pretty high. We have a specific leadership team class for our young and our adult leadership team separately, so that I can customize that atmosphere to fit the younger mindset and the more mature older mindset. So they have weekly leadership team meetings that they have to be in if they're a part of our leadership team. Now, leadership team for us is the majority of them are black belts. We have a few color belts, but there are people that are out there. We call them kind of our corrallers. They're high fivers. They help hold bags. They help keep the class exciting. Our instructors also have a weekly meeting. We also have a monthly 2nd degree and up training class that's 2 hours long that I work out in and train with my black belts in. And we specifically work on a lot of their material that they teach in classes, so that we're inspecting what we expect, so that we're showing, hey, this is how I want you hitting hard. This is how I, in those classes, but I'm not saying that to them. We're physically doing it with them. And that, I think, has been some of the most powerful stuff we've done, is integrate those meetings that are separate. There's some classroom time geared towards actual leadership, the concepts of leadership, and then there's mat time, engaging and role playing and making that leadership real. So when they walk on the mat, it's not as foreign to them. But everything, I kind of back to what you were saying, everything we do, we make great effort to lead by example. I mean, that's been one of my favorite sayings ever, just lead by example. If you want people to follow, just do it and do it well. And you become like a magnet and people will begin to come to you. So, and marketing to me is important, but secondary to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly A players like to play with other A players, right? So if you're that example, what will happen is you'll attract those people who want to fall into those categories, right? The people who want to follow that example. You will repel some who don't. but that's
Yep.
okay. That's okay, right? You want to build a high quality team, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think Big Rock is for maybe a third of the folks who are on the line, a third of our clients. I think one of the big rocks that you just mentioned is critically important not to miss is if you're not currently already treating instructor training differently than regular training, right? You need to consider that. You need to be doing that in your school. Teacher training is teaching someone to teach. Them actually teaching is a different set of skills than them performing from them martial artists. So you've got to treat it separately. You have to treat it like a separate entity. It's almost like a separate set of curriculum, and it should be a separate set of curriculum. So the third of the people I'm talking to, you know who you are. You've got to segment that out. You've got to treat them separately. You have to create a way that you can help them become better teachers.
Right.
The middle third of the folks who are probably watching this, who are our clients, you're doing that. Now what you need to do is make sure that you're implementing these types of steps. So exactly what are the 10 class management skills that they have to hit every class? And in fact, they have to do at least 3 times this class, right? The rule of 3, if I'm going to touch them, if I'm going to say their name, and if I'm going to give them positive reinforcement, right? A realistic positive reinforcement, that better be your system, right? Then that better be written down. They better know how to be good at that, right? And then the top third of the folks who are watching this, it's about tenacious execution, right? And I think, if Master Chip is an example of anything, it would be that, right? You cannot step on the floor with this guy. You cannot step on the floor, I hope, with me and my guys, right? And not bleed off that energy, not empower them with that type of tenacity. If they think that you're a passive, or if they think that you're just, kind of a, mealy mouth, then that's what they'll be, right? So I think that's critically important to underscore. Chip, while we're here,
yes, sir.
While we're on this topic, I contend that one of the pieces of magic in the martial arts classroom, one of the reasons the martial arts classroom is such a transformative environment, is because you have 4 things working for you. One of those things is you have a positive peer group. You have people around you who are all on the same mission, right? They're all kind of marching the same direction, aiming toward the same goals.
Right.
A second thing that you have working for you is you have people who are kind of motivated to be there, right? Like, mostly when you come to class is an exciting thing. A third component of that is you have a competent mentor. Now, we'll skip the fourth for today. It's not 100% relevant, but the competent mentor part, I think, is critically important. Every one of us earning our black belts knows that we saw our instructor fire out that sidekick and it sounded like thunder.
Right.
And we said, deep in our soul, we said, I need to learn how to do that. Right. Well, I contend, and I think you agree, and I'd like you to expand on it. Unfortunately, I think what happens an awful lot is the minute we open a business, the minute we open the martial arts school, we now have extracted ourselves from that environment, right? We don't have the people next to us who are marching the same direction anymore.
Right.
We don't have the motivation that we might have had, because we're kind of on our own out there, right? And sometimes we lose that positive mentor, that kind of guiding force. So what kind of a role has that played in your life and building your locations, and how do you how important do you think that is? And then how do you sort of provide that for your folks?
Okay, so I want to go back to what you said about the instructor firing out that sidekick that kind of sounds like thunder that gets you fired up. What I think of whenever I hear that is, whenever I was a kid, and even still today, it's hard to watch a UFC fight. It's hard to watch a good, a decent martial arts movie and sleep that night. Yeah. I'm just like, oh, I want to go hit something now, right? And so I try to get my instructors to understand, if we stand in front of our people, and we've already hit on the sum, and demonstrate things in a way that make them have that sensation inside of them. And I also want to tie it to one other thing. If I'm a teacher and I don't absolutely believe in what I'm doing, it's kind of like trying to sell lemons, but I hate lemons. I literally am trying to sell a lemon to someone like, yeah, man, you need lemon in your diet and it's really good for you. I have no passion. People can see through that. But if I'm an instructor that's on the mat that firmly believes in the martial art that I teach and what I do and the impact that it has, it makes everything else fall into place. And so you talked about having a competent mentor. I currently travel 3 times a year minimum to be mentored. I go from West Coast, sometimes East Coast, just depends. But I get mentored on a regular basis. And I think it is absolutely massively important that we find people that we can put around us that raise our level. And I agree with you many times. And I want to, man, I've got so many thoughts. Many times you open a business, and Michael Gerber wrote a book, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Toby, called The E-Myth. The E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth. What it is, and this happens to martial artists, it happens to all different people, but the example he used in the book that I read like 20 years ago that I still vividly remember is, you're a machinist, you work in a machine shop, and you're the best machinist there. And all your friends keep saying, hey, go open your own place, quit working for the man. And eventually you buy yourself a machine, you figure out a way to get one, you get a building, you put it in, and you go back in the shop and you go to work. And all of a sudden the work quits showing up because you didn't realize there's a dichotomy. There's my technical skill set, but there's a business to run. I've got to market. I've got to set up an assumed name. Am I going to be a sub-S corporation? Am I going to be a limited liability company? How am I going to pay my taxes and pay my... And if we don't know how to do those things, the business can't run. So back to what you said, sometimes as instructors, we get on the mat and we're back there on the mat, and that's where our passion is at, but we fail to run the business. And then we realize, oh, I've got a business to run, and it pulls us off the mat. Now we're working on our business all the time, and we're not back there being that example leader that maybe we were. Then as your business grows, people begin to look at you and say things like, oh, it's just not the same without you. It's just not the same. You're selling out. No, not really, because what I believe is I believe that I believe God put me here to do what I do. And I believe that making the most of the gifts he gave me is the best thing I can do back. And if I'm only running one small location with a handful of students, that's great. It's really awesome. But I can only really truly touch so many lives. And if I want to go beyond that and truly change the world, which is our dream, well, we're going to have to reach out and expand locations, which means systemize, take personality off the mat a little bit, but still maintain a really high quality product, which is our service on the mat. And so it's a tough thing to balance, but I think I'm going to kind of veer back now. It has to do with finding a mentor, finding people you can get around that have been there and done that, finding people that lift your level of your martial arts skills personally, from a business perspective, in every way. So then when you come back to your people, it reignites you, you're on fire, you're able to share and with your people and help them to grow. So I hope that wasn't too spotty and all over the place, but.
No, I think it was congruent. And I think in our niche, again, you described a dichotomy. You've got, the operational part as Gerber described. You've got how you do the thing that you do, and then you've got the how you run the business to be able to do the thing that you do. And I think the good news for all of us, I think if implemented appropriately, I think the great news in this niche, in this industry, is that they're really congruent with each other. If you really, as you just described, if you really believe in what you're doing, this is an inappropriate example, but I'm going to make it anyway. I think the most compelling story I've ever heard about this might strike some people as a little bit offensive. Okay, so I'll give you a fair warning for now. But here's how I sort of think about it. If you had the cure to cancer in your back pocket, let's say something happened and you figured out how to cure cancer, and you own that cure, it's in your back pocket, and little girl, 8 years old, comes into your medical practice and has cancer, what wouldn't you do to get mom the cure, to give to her? I'm not going to say that. But if you really believe in what it is that you do, then wouldn't you be persuasive when somebody comes in to take that first intro lesson? Wouldn't you help them see the benefits of what the product that you're offering is? And, I hate to use the word product, but wouldn't you do that? Wouldn't you learn that skill of communicating to the general marketplace so more people are interested in what you're doing? Wouldn't you develop the skill of helping people see the benefits in what you're doing? And then, of course, wouldn't you develop the skills of actually delivering the service, right? But I mean, I think that, it might be a little inappropriate, but I think that's how you got to think about it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And as you're talking, what I'm thinking is it's a passion issue, I think. This person who spent 20 years educating themselves to be a doctor, they did that because most of the time, and as a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, I heard a study that said like 85% of doctors interviewed said they went into medicine truly to help people. It wasn't about money. It was about a passion to help people, right? And so if that doctor is passionate about helping that little girl, he's going to fight tooth and nail to find a way to make that happen. It's kind of like us on the mat. Every student that walks in my front door, I teach and work with my guys on this. You should see every student that walks in the door of your building as your next potential best black belt, your next potential best instructor. As I'm checking out of the local grocery store, I should be looking at that young bagger who's looking at my t-shirt going, oh, you're that karate guy. And I should be thinking to myself, I am, and I would love to have you as well, because you might be my next best instructor ever. Yeah. And if we see people that way and that passion oozes out of us, it makes the sales piece just a whole lot easier, because now, in essence, in a way, you're not selling. You're just sharing your passion, man. I asked my guys a couple of days ago, I said, when you're asking, we had a program director meeting, which we do separate as well. And I said, guys, when you ask for a referral, I said, I want you to think back. If we pulled all of our black belts, even our upper belts in here and said, hey, do you regret someone inviting you to our school? They would most likely say, absolutely not, one of the best things I've ever done. I said, so when we're asking for a referral, we're not asking for something from them. We're asking to share a gift with them. It's very different. And because what we do, and we believe so much in what we do as being a gift, you should feel good about saying, hey, do you know somebody I could reach out to that would benefit from this? Because, again, we're sharing a gift with them. So I think passion is such a key in everything that we do. And if we're passionate on the mat and we're truly passionate about changing lives, we'll do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember my personal experience with this, my sort of first big one, right? And I'll try to do it in 90 seconds, but I had a student, her name was Destiny. And Destiny is one of these students who the mother and father were both addicted to drugs, had a really hard life, right? Grandma was taking care of Destiny now, right? So grandma got Destiny when she was about 6. So Destiny had enough years in the dysfunctional home for it to have affected her deeply, right? And so long story short, Destiny became one of those students that you love to teach, right? She just became one of those, you don't want to have favorites, but she became one of those that you love to see every day. Well, Destiny went off to Harvard on a full scholarship. Destiny came back, grandma, who has taken care of Destiny now since she was, 6 or whatever, gives us credit for making that happen, right? Destiny, took all of her leadership documentation and all the stuff that she was doing in her leadership programs and 5 big binders full of the stuff that she had done, earning her black belt and all that sort of stuff. And that was the thing that made an impact on the entrance examiner when she was on the bubble. They didn't know which way it was going to go. So for me, that story totally sort of changed for my own psyche. I believed in it anyway. Look what it had done for me. But to be able to help somebody accomplish that,
right?
Even if it was only 10% help, even if it was only 15% help, even if it was only 1% help,
right?
And they give us a lot of credit for it. I mean, that changes the game. Again, as you described, you're not selling somebody. You're just showing them how they can benefit from this thing, just like Destiny did, right? Absolutely. So I totally agree. Let's move into some slightly more perhaps implementatable practical solutions here for some of our listeners. As we described earlier, you're running 2 corporate locations right now and 4 licensed locations, and roughly about 800 students, something like that. And you certainly learned some lessons along the way accomplishing that. Talk to me a little bit about marketing real quick here. What right now are the big hits for you in the schools? Like if I'm one of our clients right now and you're listening, and what can you maybe go implement next week that might be productive for you on the marketing front?
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We are not giant marketers, and what I mean by that is like commercial marketing. So we have so many things we do. Social media is huge. Facebook is massive for us. So we encourage our students constantly to check in. We do something that we got from Kiyoshi Dave Kovar called the 8-step progress check. And it's basically a conversation you have with your students, and you can do it in group settings or individual settings where you ask them for referrals and reviews. And it works phenomenally well. If you go to the Team Chip Facebook page, the last time I looked, we have close to 400 reviews on our Team Chip Facebook business page, our main location. And it's just because we ask. We program our guys to not be afraid to ask. And again, I try to frame it like you're asking because you're sharing a gift, right? The next thing is get connected and I know these are such cliche things, but get connected in your community. I'm a part of the Chamber of Commerce. I volunteer in some nonprofits locally. And I have to be very careful with my time because I stay pretty busy, but I volunteer with some nonprofits. So just this week alone, our demonstration team, and I think having a demonstration team is massive in your school. They don't have to be necessarily, world class, but they just need to demonstrate and give a good visual of what you do and what your culture is and who you are. But we have a demonstration team, and just this week alone, we did a demo, and I got to speak in front of several hundred people at something called the Buddy Walk. The Buddy Walk was held at a church, and it was an event to recognize children with Down syndrome and kids with and other disabilities, but the focus was kind of Down syndrome. We never pass up an opportunity to get in front of any group, no matter their background, no matter who they are. As long as we can fit it in the schedule, we make it happen. Because what we're doing is we're keeping ourselves in the forefront of everyone's mind, and we're also showing people indirectly that we care. It doesn't matter that some of those kids may never come sign up. We just want to be there to serve them. And I think that that's huge. So, be connected in your community. This year alone, I can't remember the number. My wife has been keeping a list of all the opportunities I've had to speak just locally to different groups. The local independent school system had me come in and speak to the school teachers for the independent school district and do 3 different presentations on leadership in the classroom, on how to motivate unmotivated students, all things kind of based on what we teach on the mat here. But those are the ways we market. We ask for referrals. We stay in the public's eye as much as possible. I recently had an amazing opportunity to start a program on the local. It's an NBC affiliate called that I do a Monday morning show every Monday. They came to me and said, "Hey, we love the stuff you're doing on Facebook. We love your live videos. Would you be willing to come in and do a segment every Monday?" And they actually ended up giving me 6 minutes every Monday with the host of the show, and I kind of have almost free reign to share leadership, motivationals, a little bit of physical stuff to make it kind of fun. So I just can't emphasize enough staying connected in your community. And for small guys out there that aren't connected, one of the first steps I think you can take is just go join up with the Chamber of Commerce and begin to interact with them. Don't just join and let it sit there. Actually engage, take some action on that join. But that's our marketing, man. And then we, like I said, we ask our parents to check in. We have we give free waters to people if they check in at the school. So we have a refrigerator up front and we label the bottles. It's a little extra work. We buy labels and we put team chip on them, and people come in and after class, hey, free check in, get a free bottle of water, or you can pay $1, one or the other, you choose. Well, we get tons of check-ins at our school. I think the other day I looked in our local, our main business page has about 40,000 check-ins, which is pretty good. So we're constantly encouraging just simple, cost-free, effective social media marketing and community connection. Another thing that I wanted to throw out there too, you were talking about TED Talks. I don't know if anybody, in your group is familiar, but I did a TED Talk as well, which was an absolute blessing in 2000, I think it was 2012. But anyway, it's out there, and if anybody's interested, just look it up. It covers kind of the breakthrough leadership model. So,
yeah, I'm glad you went there. Is
that our number for the year?
Is that? Yeah.
Sorry, my wife just said something to me. So this year alone, since January, Toby, she's been keeping track, and it's an approximation because sometimes we go in and we'll ask who puts the event on, about how many people, and they'll say, well, we had about 350, or we had. So I've been able to speak to and demonstrate in front of just over 6,000 local people this year alone.
Yeah. Look, I'm not sure if there are many more technically focused folks in our industry than me. I'm not trying to, I just, for some reason, sort of been that way. And Facebook has been a godsend for the types of things that you're talking about. The Facebook ad platform, how you can build an audience on Facebook, these types of things have never been easier, cheaper, and more effective for local businesses, including martial arts schools, than today. Costs are starting to creep up on ads, but that's, it's fine, still fine. But what you're describing, I think, is still the most critical factor as far as I'm concerned. I can't buy enough traffic on Google or on Facebook to beat me having you having your team out at the opening of a martial arts movie at the movie theater, or having a team out at this, buddy run, right? Or Halloween haunted house, or Easter egg hunt, or these types of things where there is a large group of your prospective customers all in the same place at the same time. I don't know how you beat that, right? And I can spend a bunch of money online, but I still can't beat those results. Cost per lead, right? Cost per enrollment. Still love doing it, still love all the Facebook stuff, but yeah, becoming a pillar in your community, I think, should be one of the major focuses for every martial arts school operator. Bill Clark always says, you want to be the karate guy in your town. Oh yeah, you're that karate guy. Everybody just knows you're the karate guy, right? And I think you've done a masterful job of that. The TED Talk thing, these are wonderful levers to open doors that may ordinarily be closed to you, and you don't know until you just do it. Right? You just got to get out and make stuff happen. I mean, it doesn't happen on its own. Okay, great. So let's then kind of continue to move on sort of the practical front again. One of the things that you're accomplishing right now, scaling to multiple schools, is something that I've spent, a lot of time working on in my own organizations. Is how do you systematize? How do you replicate yourself? So let's talk a little bit about staff development. We already talked a little bit about instructor training, right? And I would submit that instructor training is a different thing than staff development, right? They can often happen at the same time, but they are two different sets of skills. Talk to me a little bit about how you're developing staff, how you're creating, the systems that you're using to stimulate staff development, and what you're doing to prepare them for your multi-school expansion.
Okay. So every 2 weeks, we have a specific program director meeting that's specific to what are the issues you're dealing with and talking to prospective clients. How are we going out and collecting information and collecting potential clients? So it's geared towards what are those, we role play phone calls. We're in a kind of a little bit of a unique situation in that my main location is in Abilene, Texas, which is this little island of a town. Our next corporate location is 80 miles down the road, and then our other locations are spread. So my guys can't meet weekly for a staff meeting per se. So what we do is we use Google Hangouts. And my guys get on Google Hangout with us. Sometimes there's tech issues, little connection issues here or there, but most of the time it's pretty smooth. And we sit and we work through these issues, from a program directing perspective. We go over, the P&L. We go over, for the locations, and we talk about, what is your traffic last month? How many did you close? How many trials did you get out of that? And why was your traffic low? What could you do in your community to get a little more engaged and get more traffic in the door? So we're constantly working on those things. Staff meetings are weekly, which are separate of instructor training. Program director meetings are every 2 weeks, which are separate of staff and instructor meetings. Another thing that we do, Toby, that I really love, and we just started it probably about a year ago, is every month we do a book review meeting. And all of my inner circle guys are invited to that. They don't all engage. And sometimes it's like, come on, guys, let's do this. And I assign a book, and I take recommendations from everybody, and I just kind of go, okay, I think this is the one. This month, our book is Nurture Shock by Poe Bronson. And it's literally an hour meeting that we sit down, and I just go, hey, guys, what did you take out of the book? How did you feel? And how can we use that to make us better? And we've done grit, mindset, entree leadership, all different books, The Gift of Fear, all different books that I feel like will truly benefit our guys and help them to grow and better themselves in their business. And if nothing else, challenge them to want to be better, I hope. So those are just some of the things that we do, again, instructor meetings, staff meetings, program director meetings, a book review meeting once a month, to try to encourage positivity, try to encourage growth and self-improvement. Because I always believe it. If we can't be better ourselves, we definitely can help somebody else be better.
Yeah. I think, again, let me sort of recast what I described earlier. It used to be the common scenario in a martial arts school. It's less common now, but still it's a part of our industry, where as a color belt, you learn the pattern of being successful. You set a long-term goal, earning your black belt. You take that long-term goal and you break it down into intermediate goals, earning the next color belt. You take that intermediate goal, short-term goal, and break it down into daily action. You take daily action on it, you get coaching, you get mentorship, you get direction on how to accomplish those obstacles. Used to be, then you got to black belt. And then congratulations, you get to do choreo for 2 years. Come see me, 24 months from now. Right. So I was examining every 2 months or every 3 months or whatever it was. I had this pattern, right, of being successful. And now all of a sudden you change that fundamental structure on me. Kind of seems bad, right? Well, similar thing happens again, as we described with school operators. So now maybe I have a great pattern of setting those long-term goals, breaking them down, et cetera, in my mastership of martial arts, earning the next degree and the next degree. And then now I go and open a martial arts school, and I now change that pattern of behavior. The same is true with your staff. What is the ranking system for your staff?
Right.
Right? You know how to do it, right? We all learned it. We all learned how motivated we are to get to the next rank, to get to the next stripe, whatever. We learn that tactic, but then oftentimes forget it when it comes to teaching staff or teaching teachers, right? So don't forget those lessons, right? I mean, it works. This is a proven formula for creating successful behaviors, successful people. So implement it everywhere. So I think one thing that you said that is critically important to underscore, and then I'll add one thing, is it's your responsibility to make your staff better than they are today. Right? Certainly it's their job to get better, but what are you doing to make that happen, right? If it's the book of the month, I love that. I love it. If you can't read 12 books a year, you just ain't trying, right? I mean, come on. And if you don't help the staff do that, they won't do it on their own, right? If you don't create that as part of your culture, if you don't create that mechanism, that system in place, and a degree of accountability for it, they're just not going to do it. And I've heard argued too many times to be unfrustrated by it. Well, I don't want to spend all this time training my staff because what if they leave?
Can I say something about that really?
Please.
Okay. So yeah, the next question you ask is what if they stay?
That's exactly
right now. But listen, man, I had such a it's Dave Ramsey talks specifically about that in Entree Leadership, how he sent a guy off, got him certified in some sort of coding, and it was when they were fresh and they couldn't afford employees. And the guy walks in like 2 weeks after he got his certification to code and had a job offer getting paid like twice as much. And he said, I'm livid. I'm like, I paid for that. I got you there. And then he thought to himself, and I thought this was so mature, I did my part. I'm helping him to better his life. That's what I'm here for. So if you're not training your staff, and if they do leave you, maybe look at your own culture and what you're doing to push them out the door. But if they do, and it's a better opportunity that you can't match, I think what you do is you just ground yourself in, if I contributed to them getting that opportunity, I've done what I was supposed to do, and let it go.
Yeah. Your statement is exactly right. The only thing worse than an untrained employee leaving is a trained employee. I'm sorry, the trained employee leaving is an untrained employee staying, right? That's just ridiculous. But I understand where it comes from, but it's just really, really flawed strategic thinking.
Right.
And the thing I would add to it, and Chip, you do this. I think you do a great job of this intrinsically, but maybe you can expand on if you have any tactics to help manage it. I always want to take responsibility for my instructors and my staff's skill and ability at being great teachers, and their skill and ability at being great staff members, meaning, managing the business and stuff like that. But there's another component of it that I've always felt is very important for me personally, has been a big motivator in my life, is a Tony Robbins deal. But you got to teach them how to manage their state too, because everybody has a crappy day. Everybody has a rough, week. Everybody, right. At some point, every instructor is going to walk in the door and the car just broke down, or that they can't make the house payment or whatever, right? I mean, they're going to have issues, and learning the skill of managing your state is critically important in the type of thing that we want to do, the type of high performance business, high performance organization that we want to run, you and I. How do you facilitate that? How do you help that? I mean, obviously you're intrinsically that type of or they perceive that you're intrinsically that type of a personality, but how do you help them with that?
Several ways. Number one, we talk about it. We talk about it fairly regularly. And one of the things that we talk about, and again, this is kind of right out of the TED Talk that I did, but we teach our students, and we have to personify what we teach our students. We tell our students, when you take your shoes off and you put them on the shoe shelf, or you put them on the, to the side, put your problems in your bad day in your shoes and get on the mat with an open mind. When you bow, you pour yourself out and you're empty, you're ready to receive. And we talk about that. We have an instructor creed. I will teach this class like it is the most important class I'll ever teach. I'm courteous, patient, and enthusiastic. I'm strong. I lead by example. I empower people through the pursuit of personal martial arts excellence. And so we repeat that every instructor meeting. And the whole idea is for them to learn to walk to the edge of the mat and put themselves in the best mindset possible. I also use, because we talk about ourselves, and this is not about me, but, an example of this was when I severed my Achilles tendon in 2006. I had won a couple of several world titles at that point, and everybody's like, oh man, your career is over. I'm in Atlantic City doing a show. I actually cut my Achilles, and I had a couple of days to think about it before I flew back home. And I'm thinking, everybody's looking at me going, man, oh, your career's over. Oh, you have to be physically healthy to teach martial arts. And I seriously thought, what a giant pile of poop this is. And if I'm going to get something out of it, inside of that pile, there's a golden nugget somewhere, man. And I'm going to have to get dirty to find it. And so what I did is I thought, what can I do? And at that point, I was about a year away from finishing my bachelor's degree in college. And so I thought, okay, if I can't work with my body, I can work with my brain. And so when I came back from Atlantic City, I immediately enrolled and finished my last year of school to finish my bachelor's degree. So I've tried really hard to personify, not that I'm great at it or good at it, and it is hard, but I've tried to personify this, no matter what goes wrong, there's a lesson. Let's learn it and let's move forward. But again, we discuss it in meetings. We talk about that mindset all the time. When my staff comes in and I see they're a little droopy, I might even, we've got to be emotionally intelligent and go, hey man, how's it going today? You doing okay? And they go, well, what happened? Why is that bad? Well, it's bad because X, Y, and Z, but isn't this the positive side of that? And they kind of go, oh, yeah. So sometimes it's just being emotionally intelligent in the moment and seeing them on an off day and trying to help pick that up for them. So that's how we deal with it. The systemized pieces is every week we repeat that instructor creed. I have a program director creed, and we walk through that. And again, it's just to try to create the right mindset and get them in the right place.
Yeah, I think, and as we run out of time, I think if there's a big lesson somewhere, right? Maybe one of them is this: is you said it, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times in our conversation today. You have an instructor creed. You have the program director creed. You have, that type of mechanism. Well, why? Well, look, why do we have a student creed? Well, why wouldn't you have the same system? We already know the pattern of success. We already have this figured out. The martial arts classroom is this sort of magical thing. And the reason it is because of all these little pieces of glue, all these little pieces of magic work together. Replicate that same structure. Use that structure in everything that you're doing, and believe me, you're going to love the results. You're going to have much better results, right? If your instructors aren't taking an examination on some kind of instructor curriculum every couple of months or so, you're missing that part of the system. If they're not perhaps even physically rewarded for that, right? One system, ATA actually has a really, really interesting instructor certification process. And part of their process is they use their collar as like another belt, right? And as you progress in your level of instructorship, that changes, right? So it's separate from rank. And that psychological difference, I think, is huge, right? But we know the pattern of success. We understand how these systems work in our martial arts classroom. And I think it's critically important that all of us implement those exact same things in teaching our instructors, teaching our staff, Absolutely. Running our business. There's no different.
Absolutely.
Chip, I'll give you the last word. Anything in the last 90 seconds or so that you might want to close on?
Honestly, just keep your head up, man. No matter what the weather is like, you choose your attitude. I mean, that's the biggest thing I think that we can all do is choose our attitude, how we respond, and quit blaming the economy, quit blaming politics. Just be your best and go get busy. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest thing for everybody. Every day I choose if I'm going to have a good day or a bad day. It ends up ultimately being on me. So that'd be the last thing I guess I would have to say. Just enjoyed the time on with you and appreciate the opportunity, man.
No, I appreciate it, man. Really, really appreciate your time. I thought for a minute there I'd be able to look at the Facebook Live thing, but Good enough for the day.
No
Master
worries.
Chip, thank you again so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you do have any questions, feel free to email them over to answers@ourams.com or hit me here on one of these platforms that we're using, either the blog over on the Hangout page, the webinar page, or on Facebook. Thank you again, sir, so much for the time. Appreciate it. We'll speak again soon.
Sounds good, Toby. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, everybody. Now the trick is, how do I turn all of these things off?